Welcome back to Triathlon Training Explained, powered by TrainingPeaks. Now today we're going to be talking about training for a full distance Ironman triathlon. Now you might think that you have to devote up to 16 hours a week or more to be able to train for one of these things.
I mean, that is a heck of a lot of time if you are limited for time, say you're juggling work, family and everyday life. So you will actually be pleased to hear that it's possible to train and prepare for an Ironman and still be competitive on a relatively minimalist training program.
Yeah, in fact, this minimalist approach could be argued to be better than a high volume approach for training for an Ironman if you're time pressed and juggling lots of balls with family commitments and such. Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, today we're going to talk about that, and we're going to use help from top triathlon and cycling coach Matt Bottrell.
Okay, firstly, let's take a closer look at the swim. And if you are a killer swimmer, I'm afraid I've got a bit of bad news for you, because the swim takes up the smallest proportion of an Ironman race. In fact, it's only somewhere around 10% of the overall time it takes to complete an Ironman.
Now, obviously you can swim hours and hours in the pool every week and you will see corresponding improvements in your swim. But what if I was to tell you that for 80 to 90% of your fastest Ironman time, you only actually have to spend 2 to 3 swim sessions in the week of 45 minutes to an hour?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly frees up a lot of time and also conserves a lot of energy for your other sessions. But it's really important that you're training smart and specifically when you're adopting a minimalist Ironman training program, and that accounts for all disciplines. But if we take the swim, for example, the swim is a very technical sport, so there's no point aimlessly slogging yourself up and down the pool doing pointless miles, really. You'll get far more from actually focusing on the technique from a swim.
Yeah, now if you're going to be doing, say, 3 sessions in a week, I'd certainly recommend devoting at least one of those purely to technique. If, of course, you've not got that much time and you're doing less sessions, definitely try and make sure there's some technique at the start and or the end of that session. Now, the ideal would be to get some one-to-one analysis. That would be excellent. But of course, you could head on over and see some of our technique and drill videos that are up on the channel.
Yeah, and then you can team that with an interval swim session during the week, which focuses on a threshold pace, something along the lines of 4x100s at threshold pace with 20 seconds recovery between each rep, and then 100 at aerobic pace with another 20 seconds after that. And then you can do that whole set 3 to 4 times through.
Yeah, and you can, of course, progress the length of the reps that you're doing too, which would be something like doing 2x200 meters at that threshold pace with the same 20 seconds recovery, and then into the 100 at an aerobic pace, again repeating that set through 3 to 4 times.
Or let's do it straight. We go for 1x400 at threshold pace, then another 20 to 30 second recovery now, and then 100 recovery at aerobic pace, 20 seconds recovery, and 3 to 4 times through. So you follow the pattern there. And of course, if you are going to be doing a third swim during the week, then that could be the time to really focus on those longer reps, real endurance and aerobic pace.
Well, that's all very good and well, Mark, but now that the swim's covered, what are we going to do for the bike?
Well, I have the perfect person for this. It's Matt Bottrell. Thanks for joining us today, Matt.
Oh no, Mark, it's always good to be back on the show.
Well, Matt has been on the GTN a couple of times before, but just to recap you quickly, he's been the 10 mile, 25 mile, 50 mile and 100 mile time trial champion in Britain, and has since gone on to coaching some of the best triathletes out there. We've got the likes of Lucy Charles, Tim Don and Will Clark. But today we are talking about minimalist Ironman training, which is somewhat of a speciality for you. So could you give us a bit of help on the cycle portion of the race?
Yeah, definitely, Mark. You know, there's a number of ways of getting fit, and I think a lot of people, they have this way, you know, when it comes to the cycling part of triathlon, they think that, right, I'm an endurance athlete, I've got to go out there, you know, complete hour after hour on the bike. You know, they'll train 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, but they're not really thinking about what they're completing within those sessions.
Okay, so rather than going, right, it's 180K, I'm going to go out this weekend and ride 180K just aimlessly, actually break it down. So maybe doing shorter distances to start off with, but it's really specific intervals within that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and it's having specific sessions where you incorporate these, you know, it can be threshold work, it can be microbursts, it can be sweet spot work, but it's just having small portions of training that you put in some stress on the body.
Okay, so what's the idea of doing those kind of intervals? What's it going to do physiologically for us?
So if it's, you know, like if we look at a session that we're gonna, you know, do today, like a microburst session, then, you know, we're gonna complete a number of efforts for a specific duration. So a microburst effort generally is anything between 10 and 30 seconds. But the idea behind that is we do these with short recovery, probably like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your fitness. We might do these in blocks of 20 minutes, or we could go up to the duration of 1 hour. But say if we were to, you know, analyse this in TrainingPeaks, if we went from the first effort to the last effort, the intensity factor of that session is going to be around 90. So 90% of your, you know, your function,
FTP,
of your threshold. And, you know, there's a lot of research and into actually, you know, like working at 90% of your FTP is, it allows you to recover fast, but it's also a great way of pushing that top end power up.
So that's really interesting, and I guess it's kind of the same for running, right?
Exactly, each run should have a real focus to it. And in the same way, we want to be really time efficient and looking for sessions with the most bang for their buck. And for the run, have you got any good examples?
Yeah, I guess I do. There was a session I always like to do, be breaking it down into 30 seconds of about Ironman pace or just up above that, and then dropping down to 30 seconds nice and easy below, and really just trying to build up to, well, maybe as much as an hour.
Yeah, that's a really good session. My favourite one I like to do all the time was a build run. So say I was going for a 45-minute run, I'd do the last 30 minutes of that, building through to, say, Ironman pace or slightly above that. And what that does is it's like this back-end fatigue work, very similar to an Ironman where you start to fatigue towards the end, and it really focuses on that. And you can really team that quite nicely with brick sessions. So running off the bike, again, you're going to be fatigued from the bike, and then you build through the run to really, really accumulate a lot of fatigue.
And another type of break session, I suppose, could be combining a run, say, when you've done a swim at the pool and you've got a little bit of spare time, and just throw on your run gear and go for one after. It doesn't matter whether it's bike to run or swim to run, it's still a break, right?
Exactly. It's any discipline, really. It's that fatigue. And at the end of the day, a minimalist Ironman training approach, you're trying to be as time efficient as possible. So any time you have available. And that leads us on, really, to accumulate and finalize this video, because every session needs to have a focus. We've drilled that into you now. Say you're going out for a 4-hour ride, make sure it's really focused and you really know what you're trying to get from it. You can get a lot more out of a 4-hour focused ride than you can, say, going for 6 hours and stopping at every cafe and freewheeling all the time. Finally, be flexible. Stuff happens. Don't stress if you have to miss a session or two. Just do what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, if you can, scheduling 3 swim, bike and run sessions if you can. But of course, if that's not possible, then dropping one of those out really isn't the end of the world at all. Now, hopefully you find this video about minimalist training useful and interesting. If so, please hit the thumb up like button. Not forgetting to click on the globe and subscribe for all the other videos on our channel. If you want to see another video that we also did with Matt Botchall, then you can get that here.
Yeah, if you'd like to see more of our Triathlon Training Explained videos, then just click down here.